you. Hey, that. Let's see if it's going to work. Yes, public, yes. Okay, good. And now we have to do the awkward waiting, which is always fun. Hey, everyone. So today I want to give, oh, I look not good. So today I wanted to give a short presentation, a short workshop with you on soil, and especially a very specific topic within the soil realm. And I thought it would be fun to actually show you what it is like when I talk about things that I really love, which is soil, of course, and everything in nature and animals and all these kind of really cool things. And I thought it would be a really good idea to host actually an actual workshop about soil. So this is a little training that I'm going to give to you. It's a presentation that I recently hosted for the municipality of Middelburg. And this is also a presentation that I will give to, let's see how I'm gonna translate that, to the collective, the Dutch collective of Vital Ground. It's really hard to translate, but it's a collective of people that work for all municipalities in the Netherlands. And they asked me to give a training for them, which is partly this training, but I will provide for them a 2-hour kind of short training on soil, and it will be a really small introduction, just like this one. And they asked me to host that kind of training, which is really cool. And I said to them, since you're professionals, I want to honor that time with you and really give you an opportunity to do like Q&A with me and all these kind of things. So they asked me to do a 2-hour training, which is really cool. And this is also part of my keynote speech. So I will, I've been asked to do a keynote on an environmental congress, like for European kind of people, for provinces and all these kind of things. And it will be on this topic. So this training today, this little workshop, as you might say, will be about soil as flood prevention. And let's see, my notes are in Dutch, so that's going to be fabulous to translate, but it will be fine. So what I really want you to take out of this workshop is I want you to feel inspired and eager to learn more, of course. And this is also a little taster of what it's like to be in my 12-month mentoring program. And at the end, I will tell you a little bit more, but really short. I train about 20 people a year or so in my certification process, and that's a process to become a landscape healer. And we talk about topics such as this. So very nerdy kind of subjects. This one is about soil, but we also talk about plants a whole lot and about animal integration and farms and the difference between sustainable and regenerative, which I will talk a little bit more on about today as well. And I train you basically to get my job, more or less. But I also noticed that whenever you are in my realm as a trainee, you also get to develop the skills that set you up to be a freelancer or start your own business or sell projects. So my trainees, it's very common now that I've gone through around with them. The results are people sell 1,000 VIP days, 1,000 euros for a VIP day, which is really, really cool. One of my trainees, she's selling 15K packages, so that's 50,000 euro packages. One of my other trainees, she is selling 20,000 euro packages, which is really fantastic. And they're so amazing. One of my other mentor clients, so I also, last year, I had some time to do one-on-one mentoring. She's selling 75,000 euro projects. And I'm so proud of them. And one of my other trainees, she's a biologist, and she started working for me recently. I onboarded her, and she will start helping me supporting this program, which is so cool because she's so smart. She's a biologist, and she's now selling her own projects. I think she recently sold a 3,000 euro package. Really, really awesome. So that is about my mentorship program. If you want to know more, just send me a DM and we can hop on a call, see if you're a great fit. I want to onboard 15 in this round. Now, what do we want to talk about today in this little workshop? This is it's more or less called regenerative soil as a flood prevention mechanism, and it will be for urban surroundings. And it's basically tailored to municipalities and provinces to learn more about. So they all have park departments, green departments, and I host this talk to show them that there's way more possible if kind of their protocols and everything that they implement within a municipality or city, it's all been done with this heart of soil in mind and how soil works. So if you don't know me, that might happen because I have a whole lot of new followers. My name is Marjolein Schuit, and me together with a team, so I'm not doing this alone, we help landscapes go from fallow to fertile. And we do this more or less in the western part of the world. My focus is in Europe, Canada, and the US for now, but I also have a couple of pro bono projects that we will start this year, and they're like teamed up with projects that I sell. So if I sell a big project, then someone on my applicants list for a scholarship can then run the application process. Very simple, and I will also help them with training them in all this kind of material so that they can train their communities in becoming a regenerative community, which is really, really cool. And I do consulting. So I tell people what they should do, what I think will be the best kind of possible outcome. And we make plans for that. And I am also the one, I do a little bit of project management for a couple of projects this year. And we do designs as well. And then there's like maybe 2 projects this year that we will also implement. That's my team, that's not me. And I will write like step-by-step processes for bigger companies on how to regenerate that soil. And we do the testing, but that's like from my colleagues from the Food Soil Web. And what we find really important is the healing capacity of the landscape. And that is actually the kind of the core of my business, is how can soil regenerate itself. And we do that by, for example, we create food forest designs, for example, or garden designs or landscape designs that are not from the 18th century anymore. So I don't know if you noticed, but parks, how they look like today, they still stem from like the 1800s, 1900s, more or less. And that was a total different society. Like we had way less people, we didn't have cars, and there wasn't this many invasive practices being done on soil. So today we're looking at landscapes that are not future-proof. And that's with these kind of projects that I'm running at the moment. We are a project-based business, so we run from project to project, and I just spot what's needed. So at the moment, we focus on flood prevention, and flood prevention within urban communities and urban surroundings is very, very important. And we will do 4 of flood prevention projects this year. And I'm also hoping to start like 2 fire prevention projects because soil has a storing capacity for water. All right, so what do we want to talk about today? This will be a little workshop, so you can actually do something with the material that I teach you. There's a little bit of an assignment, and I want to talk to you, of course, about soil. So we all know that bees and birds and maybe diversity in plants, maybe you know that that's important, but also climate adaptation, living with water, they're all subjects that you might, it might keep you up at night. That could happen. But all these problems, but also the solutions, start with soil. And that is, I think it's scary on one side, but it also provides you with hope. Like, hey, there is actually a quite simple answer to many problems we face in the world. And as you might know, one of the trainings that I followed is with Kiss the Ground, and that is a soil advocacy training. And I provide these kind of trainings for free because I'm one of their soil advocates. And this is what I've learned from Kiss the Ground, is that so many problems that we're facing in the world, whether that's drought, whether that's flooding, whether that's wildfires, whether that's food and lack of food in communities, they all can be prevented if the soil will be restored and has that fertile kind of capacity that soil can have. So that's really interesting, I think. And this is part of it is that nature has the capacity to heal itself, and ecosystems work constantly on the carrying capacity within that system. So now what does that mean? Whether there's more life added to a system, the system always works on carrying itself, so regenerating, constantly renewing. So whether that's death and decay, and then new life will spring, the system itself always works on that. Now, this is an interesting fact, I think, or an interesting kind of thing to think about, is we as humans, we always, most of the time, or maybe you're an astronaut, then it's a different kind of case, but mostly we are with both feet on the ground, literally, all the time. If you're walking or if you're sitting down, there's always like a connection to the earth. But why don't we have any attention for the role of that soil, that's storing capacity that it has? And the interesting thing is, what I think, but maybe that's because I am biased because soil is the heart of my business, is that it's like a key thing within problem and solution. And I think that's really interesting. So there was a Dutch word and I couldn't like translate it in my head. So let's see. So if you're watching this live and you're commenting, I cannot see it because I'm doing this via Zoom. I'm going back to, I had some notes, now they're gone. Where are my notes? Oh, where are my notes? Where are my notes? Oh, yes. Okay. So this is something, somewhat of a cheesy quote that I want to write down for you, actually. And I don't have much battery left. This is somewhat of a cheesy quote, but we, from Kiss the Ground, we use this. And I say we, it feels like I'm part of their like core team. But there are actually, I think, 2,000 soil advocates in the world now for Kiss the Ground. And they don't know me. They don't know me by name, but it still feels as if I'm part of their kind of program, which is really cool. And I'm really proud of being a soil advocate. So this is one of the statements that we often start our talks with. And it is this one. And I shared this, I think I've shared this before. Let's see if I did this right. So we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking. You see, it's kind of cheesy. Of thinking. So we can solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. When we created them. and this is, of course, from someone who's been quoted, I don't know, 3 times over. Albert Einstein, of course, said this. So we cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Now, soil and the destruction of soil, and especially topsoils, but also sublayers of soil, it is mostly an agriculture side effect. I don't want to call it an agricultural problem because that will sound like I'm blaming farmers for this, but that is nowhere near the case. So we have been using tillage, for example, over the last 10,000 years. And 10,000 years ago, this seemed like a perfect idea to grow food, maybe on like a way smaller scale than we do now. But over the last 100 years or so, especially after the Second World War, we have been plowing way more than soil can handle. And I will show you later on in this kind of workshop and this training why that is so destructive. I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to write down that we're doing a workshop. When someone is tuning in, they know that we do a workshop on soil. Because this is a free workshop for you. How cool is that? So, of course, we still look at soil the way we created that problem. So I recently gave this presentation and also like a sub kind of talk about soil for the municipality. And then one of the panel members, well, one of the team members of the municipality said, yes, but I'm a farmer, and this is all very inspirational and very, very interesting. But I think that plowing is still very necessary, and we cannot, we always have to plow in rows and all these kind of things. And then I reversed back to this quote from Albert Einstein and explained to her that it's a matter of looking at soil from a different lens. And the problem, well, yeah, the problem with soil and how we treat it is that we always treated it as more a chemistry problem and solution. While soil, actually, I wrote a quote about this today and also a little bit of a longer text. Soil is actually a living organism. So that falls into the realm of biology. And I explained to this person, I said, I really understand because Ray Ashuleta, I can never pronounce his name, he was the head of agriculture in the US. They also didn't know how soil actually functioned. And they also always looked at soil from this chemistry lens. So I understand that is, but if you just pick up a different kind of glasses and look at soil in a biology manner, you cannot ever look at it again by thinking, oh, we should fix this with chemistry, meaning we should put artificial fertilizers in there and pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, all these kind of things. So that's called biocides, of course. It's a very interesting topic in and of itself, something I won't dive in today. I'm still a little bit like anxious to talk about biocides in public. That has its reasons. It's not personal, but it's kind of tricky to talk about biocides. So we always thought that we should treat soil as this empty container where we just pour stuff in. Now, Dr. Elaine Ingram, she is super fantastic. I talk about her all the time, and still I cannot write her name. Sorry. She trained me in the food soil web. She says, what was my point? That she's awesome. That's my point. I will get to it. Doesn't really matter. Now I want to know. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I want to provide you a different lens today of our soil. Oh, sorry, my little mindfulness reminder. Thank you. Okay, so I want to draw 3 arrows for you, and I really want you to take your time to look at these arrows. downwards arrow. Nothing wrong there. I rant about this quite a lot. And one of my trainees, when she just started out with me, she said, "What is your problem with sustainability?" I'm going to explain to you what my problem actually is. And it's okay. If you don't know what you don't know. But I'm just here to give you a different perspective on soil. This is the upwards arrow. On and upwards. So, 3 different arrows. The first one is an interesting word. This is degenerative. It's a downward motion. We are in a degenerative world. So we, especially in the West, we tend to only subtract, only take until there's nothing left. That sounds super gruesome. I sound like H.P. Lovecraft when I say that. But what I mean by it is that we don't really know how we can take on a large scale and then also give back. Now, a new model, sustainable. It's quite new, not so new. Sustainable, that's this model, right? Goes on and on, these arrows. So what that means actually is we can constantly reuse. So that degenerative is only take, and sustainability means we can constantly reuse something. It's already better. It implicates that there's no waste involved, or almost like zero waste, which is very, very good. I really like zero waste, but it's actually really, really hard to have like a zero waste household, zero waste business. It's quite hard. Now, the last one is my favorite word since I started with Chris Crouch. This is regenerative. Now, if you look at these arrows, what will regenerative mean to you? What will it say? I want you to take your time, just a couple of seconds, and think about what regenerative means when I show you all these arrows. Right? It's interesting, huh? That there's a new model out there, it's called regenerative, and it's not sustainability. Now, what does that actually mean? Now, regenerative agriculture in origin stems from permaculture. And permaculture, don't know if you know what it means. Permaculture. Culture means permanent agriculture. So it's a permanent form of agriculture. But do you know what that implies? We keep being stuck in the sustainability model. We can constantly reuse, which sounds really good in theory. But if you look at permaculture in a broad spectrum, yes, it is a regenerative model, but still, when done like half-ish or only with the philosophy of permaculture, this means that the self-healing capacity of that system isn't in place. So I see this happen, and that's okay. People use the philosophy of permaculture because it sounds really interesting and is in essence very, very good, but they forget like kind of the key components of permanent agriculture. When we design and when I do consulting, I always consult for legacy. I find that very important. So it's not only now, but it's until 2,000 years from now. And I don't take this lightly, because systems like done with all the principles and ethics and all the kind of details around permaculture, they can build legacy gardens that last up to 2,000 years. But what does that actually mean? It means that we have a regenerative model in place. The systems that we implement mean that they can renew itself constantly. Now, one of the most sexy things out there, I think, is one of the key examples is a food forest, of course. Food forest or a forest in itself. Let's take a forest. A forest is regenerative. And it comes from that cycle of death and decay and then new life in the most simplest form. Now, regenerative means that it can renew itself instead of let's just sustain what's there. So if we sustain from a degenerative place, that means that the place is totally depleted. If we sustain that, there's not much to sustain, actually. We hold in place what's already there, namely a degenerative world. We don't want to sustain that. We want to renew that degenerative state. Now, lucky for you, I know how to do that, but I won't go into detail now. That's a bummer for you. But the cool thing is that there is so many ways to renew this degenerative system. Yes, even systems, I get this question asked by clients from time to time, even systems that have been poisoned, that have biocides in them, yes, we can renew these. And recently I had a talk with someone that will help me with projects, and he does this by using fungi, which is really cool. More or less. Yeah, I think it's amazing. So he uses fungi, but that's like the short kind of answer what he does. Now, my question to you is the following. Oh, I hope I'm not going too fast. I totally forgot what I wanted to say about Dr. Elaine Ingram. Yes, I'm sorry. So my question to you is, when you were a kid, did you ever have this happen? So you were on your bike, you were going like super, super fast on your bike, and then you went downhill, and then you got a wound on your arm and on your legs, and it looked really, really nasty, and it's this open wound. Do you have that as a kid? I did. I was very brave, and I went like on a very steep hill with my little bike, and I crashed into a garage, and it was not pretty. And I had to take my pants off in front of a mom. Like I had a neighbor, and in front of his mom, I had to take off my pants, and I was so sad as a little person. That's total side story. Now that wound, what if you leave that open? What if you don't treat it? What if you leave it open? What if you don't like put any medicine on it and don't wash it and all these kind of things? So after 6 months, that wound will still be nasty and open. I think it would be like terrible to do that. And then after 3 years, that same wound, it won't heal properly. If it's really, really nasty open road rash. Now the same is actually with an agricultural landscape, and also in urban surroundings, this is the same. So this is what I often see happen in urban surroundings, is that parks, for example, and all these kind of little like side greenery on the side of the roads and all these kind of things, they have been kept open. And this is an old model. If we go back to that quote from Einstein, this is how we always looked at, this is how parks and recreation has to be maintained. Has to be neat and tidy. Well, what we're actually doing with that landscape is keeping that wound open, because it's an open wound. We upheavaled all that soil and we did all kinds of stuff to it, and we plowed it and all these kind of things, and we were shoveling and all kinds of things that are not good for the soil, and we keep that open. Now my question to you is, why would you ever want to sustain something like a road rash? Would you want to sustain that? That's my question to you. Would you want to sustain a road rash? And then the next question is, would you actually then also want to sustain that soil condition, that open wound? Would you want to do that? Would you want to sustain that? Or would you rather have systems that can constantly renew itself? So I have been watching a whole lot of Grey's Anatomy, like a whole lot. And it's mainly because there's one doctor that I find really, really hot. And this is what they also talk about, regenerative medicine, like renewal of organs and all these kind of really cool things. And I got really excited. And that is because I think of soil, like, oh, they understand what I'm talking about. It's really dumb that I'm telling you this, but still. So what is soil actually? What is it made of? You saw it in my post already. So if you haven't read it, scroll back a little bit on Facebook and read a post that I wrote about what soil actually is. Now, this is the super, super, super short version. And now I remember what I wanted to say about Dr. Ian Ingram. So soil isn't this empty container that we constantly think it is and we have to add stuff to it. No, all minerals are actually stored into something we call a crystalline layer. Now, the only thing we need to do is make sure that that soil is regenerative, can constantly renew itself. And part of it is the death and decay cycle. That's part of it, but there's so much more to it. So when I asked this question to the municipality of Middelburg, I asked them, so what do you think soil is? What do you think it is? And it sounds like a really dumb question, but do you actually know what soil is? Do you actually really know what it is? And I also asked this question on my timeline. But soil, most people think about particles. So clay, silt, sand particles, they think mostly that is soil. But in most cases, we're talking then about dirt, non-living kind of structure. There's no life in dirt. And what soil also is the additives of air and water. Isn't that interesting? That's also part of soil. You can argue with me about it. I know you won't, but this is also part of soil. So it's air and water. But then there's also organic matter, because more often than not, if it's soil, so we're talking about soil, and what I mean by soil is the best kind of outcome for fertility. Now, organic matter, whether that's leaves, whether that's roots of the plants, whether it's dead plants, all these kind of things, organic matter is very important, whether it's poo and pee, also very important for soil. So that's also part of soil. Isn't that interesting? And then next to that is also living roots and organisms. So Dr. Ian Ingram calls this food, and I always say this wrong, food soil web. She calls it the food soil web. Now there's amazing pictures about the food soil web. And this was a very, very brutal course for me to follow. It was very brutal because there was a whole lot of chemistry into it. And I'm not that good with numbers. And chemistry is not kind of my forte. I'm better with biology. But still, her full course, it's like, I don't know, 100,000 hours of training. And she talks about the food soil web. And look up some pictures. It's really, really interesting. But what is also then part of that soil is then, of course, one, living plant. So next to particles, water, air, and organic matter. Two is then also bacteria. They are part of it. I'm going to explain you why. Three, my newfound obsession, fungi. I'm in a pay-to-play mastermind and I was talking about fungi, and they said, do you know a fun guy? No, I said fungi. Fungi and mycorrhiza fungi. Not a fun guy. 4 is Protozoa, and 5 is nematodes. Could be worms. Worms, for example. So this is the food soil web. The cool thing, I think, is that next to all that you think makes up soil, this is also part of it, but this is a symbiotic relationship. Symbiosis. It means, in short, that they need each other. But without all this, there's no soil. You cannot argue me on this. There is no soil with this. And then we mean fertile, healthy soil. So this is critical to soil building, which is really interesting. And that symbiotic relationship, so Dr. Elaine Ingram calls this like a taxi cab system. And then that's what I meant with all minerals and nutrients needed for a plant are actually already in the soil in the crystalline layer. And that taxi cab system makes sure that whatever a plant needs, a nutrient or a mineral, it just whistles like, hey, I need something. And then the bacteria and fungi, they will go and get it. Very short answer, as you might understand. Now, the cool thing about, what's the cool thing that I wanted to tell you? Is I wanted to say something about this, and of course I lost my notes. So the cool thing is the more air and water and organic matter there is in the soil, the more soil can store water. So that's the storage capacity of soil. So that's really cool. Like the more, and it sounds like a really short answer. It is also a very short answer on this. Normally I give around 8 hours of training, and my trainees just requested to add another like 5 hours of training to our, we call it our master doc, and that is where I store all my trainings for my trainees. So that is about 13 hours of training in and on itself. And I just pitched a project to do 2 weeks of soil training for someone, and then that's only the basics. Honestly, this is a topic I can talk about forever because it's so interesting. But what you could remember is the more water, air, and organic matter there is in the soil or on top of the soil, doesn't really matter, because it will be worked in by fungi and bacteria as a taxi cab system, the more storing capacity that soil has. Very interesting. Yes. So one of the things that I talked about with the municipality of Middelburg is the following. Whenever I walk through their parks after heavy rainfall, I see that their infiltration rate is 24 hours. 24 hours. And that means the infiltration rate of heavy rainfall. So it's raining. We love rain in the Netherlands. It almost always rains. Not where I live, but when there is rain, it's quite heavy. Heavy rainfall, this is the soil, and all that rain stays there on top of the soil. That is not a condition that we want, but we accepted it. We think that puddles are a normal part of our landscape. They're not. They're really not. So this is the infiltration rate on parks in Gemeente Middelburg and most of the parks in the Netherlands. But we wanted to have it actually 4 seconds. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on. Now there are 5 principles from which we operate, which is, I think, interesting to name. And it's also something for you to take away from this class and actually see in your own landscapes or in your own cities or all these kind of things, is the following. Are these 5 principles of regenerative agriculture? We use it for regenerative landscape healing. Are these principles in place? Now, the 5 principles are least disturbance. I talk about this quite often. So that shoveling and digging and all these kind of things, it's not very good for the soil. And now you know, because it's a living organism, right? I named this as an example. So what if I'm in my house, minding my own business, doing whatever the fuck I want, and then suddenly a big kind of crane comes into my house and destroys my whole house suddenly, out of nothing? Would I be happy? Would I be happy? No, I would be pissed as fuck. Now, this whole food soil web is thinking the same. They're building, like with that taxi-cab system, they're building their organic material and working on that beautiful symbiotic relationship, and that's all happy and lovely. And then suddenly we decide that it needs to be aerated. So our soil needs to be aerated. I see this all the time. Yes, our soil needs to be aerated, and I needed to add some air to the soil. No, you don't have to do that, because this whole taxi-cab system does the aeration for you. Okay, rant over. Oh, I can get so ranty about this topic, which is why it is my job, actually. Now, the second principle of the 5 principles of regenerative agriculture or regenerative landscape healing, the second one is the living root. There should always be a living root in the system. And now you understand why. The third one is soil armor. That soil always needs to be protected. And whether that's from heat, from rain, from wind, what else is there? There's some other things. It needs to be protected. And what else needs to happen is me plugging in my laptop. So just an intermezzo. I hope that you're enjoying my little workshop on soil for flood prevention. I, for example, find this very fascinating to talk about. I hope you're enjoying this. I think it's super useful information because I love this topic. Now, the fourth one is animal integration. And this is what I convinced the municipality of Middelburg. And I recently told someone from the US that this is what I want them to do. I said, you need to integrate way more sheep into your system. Way more. All that mowing, and there are spots it's in every city. It's in every city, it's the same. We are no exception in Middelburg. But our landscapes, they are mowed very, very often. I think around 23 times a year or so, but it's only on certain areas. So there's, you see this in cities all the time. It's not an exception, but 23 times a year means disturbing of all of this, but then not only on below level of the soil, but also on top. So all those plants worked very hard, and then we come with our land mower and mow everything off. Now that could do with maybe mowing 5 times a year, but a better lawn mower is actually a herd of sheep. And why is that? Very short answer again, but Alan Savory from the Savory Institute, Alan Savory, I think. Alan. Look him up. His YouTubes are amazing. I think he's no longer alive. I followed his holistic management training. Super awesome. Now you understand why my trainees asked me to do way more on soil and that I'm nowhere near done. So I followed his holistic management training on animal integration, and it's actually the grazing patterns of sheep are of hoof animals, so all animals with like this foot, like this, that make a specific type of imprint when they are chased. So when they have like a startle reaction, that imprint is vital for soil restoration. Isn't that super awesome? So that's what I said. I said, you need to integrate more sheep. And they said, oh, that's so good. That's such a fascinating topic. And then the last one is increased biodiversity. Now that we know that this food soil web consists of all these elements, can you imagine the exchange between different types of plants, different plant species? You might know me by now, but if you don't, I love plants. I am so obsessed with plants. I think botany is one of the most fascinating things up to date, and it's actually my interest for plants. It has this direct correlation to my interest for soil, because for me they go hand in hand. So if you see me rant about plants in the same way, you now understand, because they all contribute to the soil restoration practices. Now, you can understand the more the biodiversity there is, the more richer that food soil web and soil itself will become. Okay. I'm not going to talk about water cycles, I think. So this is something I want to draw for you. Here comes my drawing skills again. They are fantastic. Never been better. So what? We talked about infiltration rates a little bit, right? So just a little bit of a reminder when you're just hopping in. This we consider normal, 24 hours after heavy rainfall. Heavy rainfall. That's the amount of hours that water will stay on the subsurface of soil. A little bubble, that's water. It won't infiltrate. Now it lasts 24 hours, sometimes up to 84 hours actually. But what it should do is it should infiltrate into the soil. Always. If we talk about flood prevention, that is number one. What is their infiltration rate? We want to bring that up to 4 seconds. It should be 4 seconds to a minimum. 4.5 maybe is measured. And that is by using regenerative practices. It could infiltrate within 4 seconds. Now, I live in a coastal town, and you might do too. Do you now realize how important these kind of numbers are? And what soil can contribute to flood prevention in urban surroundings? Now you know why. Now you know why these kind of statistics are so, so important. Now, half an inch, what does half an inch of rainfall look like? I think I showed this picture before. I'm going to draw it for you. What does a half an inch of rainfall look like? Now, I don't know the conversion from inch to centimeters. Just look it up. Google is your best friend. But don't Google soil. Don't do it because it sucks. I often have to skip like textbooks or certain parts of textbooks because they're not correct. And that's okay. It's quite new research. So what does it look like? It looks like this. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, this is a cow. People, this is a cow. Now, and I do designs, but they don't look like this. This is a cow. Mm. And this is drawn from a real life picture, you guys. It stands in 1 inch, a half inch of rainfall. This is, of course, soil that's heavy, compacted. That means actually that one of the sub layers of soil, it's not the top layer, one of the sub layers of soil is so compressed that water cannot infiltrate. So this is my cow. It stands in a half an inch of rainwater. Again, if we go back to like the kind of the first section of this workshop, if we ask ourselves, why do we want to sustain this? Why do we want to sustain this? Then you might now understand that this is something that we perceive as normal, but actually isn't. This isn't a normal situation. The soil has storing capacity. And those cows, but also those humans, imagine what that will do, a heavy rainfall that is not predicted, because that is what we're looking ahead at in future, is heavy rainfalls that are not predicted in a city such as Middelburg, close to the ocean. Can you then imagine how that heavy rainfall will look like in an urban surrounding? That's not good. That's really not good at all. And we've seen these kind of rainfalls. They're still kind of mild, but they can really, really increase. I have more of these kind of examples, but for you, this is the exercise. This is what I want you to do after this workshop. Kind of this introduction into regenerative landscape healing. This is actually what I want you to do. Now, I hope it won't rain because it just stopped raining in the Netherlands. But when it will start to rain again, and where you are in the world, it doesn't really matter. After a heavy rainfall, I want you to take a stopwatch. So there's a stopwatch on like your cell phone. And I want you to time how long it will take before that water will infiltrate in the soil. I want you to do this exercise with me and just time it. And I think my guess is most of you will get sick of this exercise really, really quick. But you can just look outside, lay your timer there, and then time it for me. And then also let me know how long it took for that water to infiltrate in the soil. And also send me some pictures of it, and also tell me where you live. And this is the exercise. The exercise for you is actually one of the key elements of my job as a landscape healer. It is this, it's observation skills. And they sound really easy, and they sound really boring, and all these kind of things that you think like, oh, but I already know this. Well, if you already knew this, we wouldn't have this kind of problem, won't we? So this is what I want you to do. After heavy rainfall, just look outside. Look outside and see how long it takes for that water to infiltrate in the soil. And that is what I want you to learn from this workshop. That is what I really want you to take away from this workshop is this. The soil has the capacity to hold water. And if we don't look through the lens of a regenerative specialist, such as myself, a regenerative landscape specialist or regenerative agriculture specialist, we won't ever solve these kind of problems. We just won't, because we assume that after heavy rainfall, the water will stay on top of the soil, because that is our assumption. That is how we've all been raised and how we've grew up in. I still like to jump in heavy in muddy puddles. I am like Peppa Pig, I love it, but it shouldn't be the norm. And this is what I'm telling you from like 20 years of research, not only from Kiss the Ground, but also Ellen Severy and Dr. Elaine Ingram, and there's so many more. Ray Agiletta is also amazing. There's an amazing book about this that I really, really love from Gabe Brown. He is also amazing. I really want to follow some training with him. It's Dirt to Soil. To soil. It's really good. It's more like a narrative on about his farm, and he also talks about this. Like we accepted this as the norm, but we have so much knowledge now to change this kind of ideas and change this kind of thinking. That was it for today. Oh, I don't know if this was it. Oh, not too quick, not too quick, not too quick. Let me look in my notes before I hop off. Yes. Yep, that was it. Well, if you saw this workshop and you thought, oh, this is like super inspirational and I want to learn more, I want to watch these 13 hours of training, they're not only 13 hours. So what I'm hosting this year is a 12-month traineeship with me so that you can learn actually what my job looks like. And I show you everything behind the scenes. I just peeled apart how I pitch $500,000 projects to businesses, to companies. And I reveal you the behind the scenes of that. So that means that you can implement these kind of strategies in your business as well. And this is for you if you already have a business, if you have like that money muscle when that is in place. And it is also for you when you really, really want to transform or transition from an office job to an outdoors job. I would highly recommend my job because it's both worlds. I sit at home, I work from home, and this is actually on my attic. And I also am outdoors a whole lot. And whether people pay me for it or not, I am super outdoorsy person. And I talk about all these kind of things with people. So you can become a consultant, you can become a designer, you can have a combination of it. You can run projects. So one of my trainees, she's running projects for the municipality, for her municipality, thanks to following this program. She's getting paid really, really well for it, because I also find it important that whomever enters my realm has all these kind of elements in place to just earn whatever they want. I think that is so important. And I show you how that works. I've been trained, I've learned this from like really, really good mentors in business coaching and all these kind of things. And I just learn you all these principles. And I find it also important that you run whatever you want to do, you run it on your terms and not on mine. So whenever you feel uncomfortable, we make a new strategy for you until everything clicks into place. And this is what one of my trainees recently said to me in one of our bi-weekly calls. So we see each other every 2 weeks to have like a group call. She said to me, it feels like all these puzzle pieces are now connecting to each other. And that is a beautiful motherfucking thing, that everything just falls into place. And she is running a community garden project, which I really, really like. I am obsessed with gardens, big or small, as you know. So she's running a community garden project. She's doing a project in Spain, consulting, and she's doing whatever she likes. She says to me like, hey, I just want to do whatever I like with my business. And I said, I applaud you because I feel the same. That's why I work on project base. So this is a traineeship for 15 people, and it is all in English. It will be all online, but at the end of the year, we will host a really big gathering of all trainees. So every year I want to make it a habit within this program to invite everyone for food, a big campfire, some deep diving around some practical stuff. So landscape pattern recognizing and actually gazing the landscape and how to be in the landscape and how to heal it as well. We want to do that as a practicum as well. Finding water, all these kind of really cool things. So whenever you have been a trainee like 10 years ago, when you were in the program 10 years ago, or you just joined, you will always be invited on these yearly gatherings. And I find it so important to build actually a community of landscape healers. And some of you, this is the cool thing, not all of you, but some of you, get hired back into my business because we just did these calculations. I have 101 hours coming up per month that I cannot do myself. And that's why I train people. Up until now, I hired back, yes, all of my trainees to do like all kinds of jobs, like whatever someone likes. And whenever there's place in my business, I fit them in. And that's why I train them as well. So if this feels like, oh yes, I want her job, or I just want to pick her brain every 2 weeks, you're more than welcome. Some say that following this traineeship has been so much better than 3 years of therapy. And I love that. All of the trainees up to now said, this is life-changing. It's a life-changing program. And I understand that because the things that I will learn you've now followed like a short workshop with me, things that you will learn with me, but also together in this, we call it the Mycelium Network, in this community, you learn from your peers as well. And we are so close within our groups, and we keep our groups really small. So up to 8 people, I wrote it wrong in the document, but up to 8 people per kind of pod. And it also, so whether you want to start your business or you want to implement all of this stuff in like your farm or your big landscape or anything else you want to do, community garden projects or community supported agriculture, this is then the right place for you. I've been doing this kind of work for 10 years. That is a very long time. And actually, I did my master thesis on this as well. So my master thesis was on community gardens as a garden historian. So you're at the right place. If you feel that this is right for you, send me a DM or book a call directly. And you can just chat with me, see if you like this. And then thank you so much for watching this workshop. Please do the assignment with me because it is so important to collect data around this. And it's also for you to actually see what I'm talking about. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.